So
Uh, an end of an era.
we're we're canceling the show?
No, Andrew.
But Josh, how how are we supposed to be friends? How are we supposed to monetize our friendship?
That's what your mom pays me for?
What? Hi everyone, welcome back to the What If We podcast. I'm joined today as usual by my co-host Yosh, and I am Andrew. Welcome back, everyone.
I'm changing my name.
It's funny that you think you can change your name when I'm the one who does the announcements at the beginning of each episode.
No, that's changing. That's changing.
Before we get into why everything's changing.
I'm Donut, you're Eli. You're the one with the tism.
Yeah, I'm the one with the tism. Anyway. Hi everyone, welcome back to the last episode of the What If We podcast.
We're ending the podcast?
We did the cold open already, Josh.
But I don't want to break up.
It's not a breakup. We're just seeing different people.
You're starting a new podcast without me?
No, it's with you, Josh.
It's paid. Oh, okay. Is it a new podcast? Is it
We'll get into that in a second. How about, first of all, how you been, man? It's been a couple weeks. We had some, besides dying from the 95 plus weather. How's it been for you?
I've slowly recovered from dying of heat stroke.
It's bad when it's hotter in Texas than it is in Michigan, or hotter in Michigan than it is in Texas.
Yeah, yesterday when I was checking the weather, at one point it was 98 here and like 94 in Austin. And granted, they're an hour behind us, but
still, it's a cruel joke that God is playing on the Midwest.
My parents are in Alaska right now, and they sent me a photo yesterday, and it was 57 degrees, and I said, that sounds glorious.
Yeah.
No, things have been good. What have I been up to the last couple of weeks? Not a ton outside of work, and going to see Megan on the weekends. Obviously 4th of July is coming up, so, gonna be moving here in the next couple weeks. But yeah,
if anyone needs any advice on moving, we do have an episode on that.
Yeah, I won't be going back to review the episode.
You've lived that episode several times.
No, I'm just not gonna take any advice. I'm gonna do what I always do.
Lift with your back. Don't ask for help. Throw your pillows in your one container.
That's what they tell me to do with the deadlift. Is just lift with my back. 415 for the deadlift, and just lift with your back. I'm
getting scoliosis just thinking about it.
Specifically upper back, not your lower back.
Oh, of course.
But no, I mean things have been good. Went and saw the Tigers game. I think we already talked about that.
I can't remember if we talked about it or not, but that was fun. Got the gang together.
Oh, Eucharistic procession.
I was waiting for you to bring that up.
Yeah, we had a Eucharistic procession on Saturday, perhaps one of the hottest days of the year, outside in Jackson Field, which is where the Lansing Lugnuts play. Had mass, and then we processed about a half mile from there to the steps of the state capitol. Had a brief time of adoration, and then people were kind of hanging out, stuff like that. A lot of the new priests were there, so new priest blessing train was going around.
Nice.
Yeah, a couple students there. But no, life is good. I mean, life is just one of the things that people often don't think about is just like life can be very monotonous, and that's not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's just part of life sometimes.
There's nothing wrong with the routine sometimes, and things just happening.
Yeah. One of the things I always talk about with my students is like, how do you sanctify and find adventure in your ordinary life? Right? How do you make the ordinary life that you're living something that is holy and also adventurous, right? Which is like an interesting endeavor and thought, right? Um, how can I see every moment as a moment of opportunity to embrace
You're
grace?
stealing part of my going deeper later.
Oh yeah, that's fine. This will be a whole other podcast episode. Don't worry. Um, but yeah, no, things have been going well. Um, excited for the 4th of July coming up. Excited to move.
Nice.
When today was the first day where it was below 80 degrees at 8 a.m. And so I went out fishing, caught a decent sized bass.
Nice, nice.
All of the fish are moving to deeper water, so now I have to change fishing tactics.
All right, Jeremy Wade. Uh, with your
Well,
fancy fishy tactics.
yeah, listen. You can't just sit out there and throw a worm and expect to catch the big fish. You got to trick them a little bit. Yeah, give them a little tease.
Yeah,
Make it fall
surprisingly,
from the.
Fishers of Men didn't really give me any of those tactics.
It's okay. We'll go out fishing this summer. Um, when you come to help me move into the new digs,
Yeah, you got to
which
get me
will
updated on that.
I will have a yeah I will have a bedroom and then an office, which is going to be so hype because I'm already working out like, okay, this is where I'm going to put like the recording stuff.
Yeah, my office at home is literally just for everything.
Well, right, but like also like this is the hard part of moving and just like thinking through life in the next couple of years. Having a girlfriend I very much love and would like to one day potentially marry is how much do I outfit this apartment with junk, and how much do I make it really simple?
Yep. My word of advice on that is simplify where you can.
Yeah, so like
Because
I'm
you got to
even
bring all
questioning.
that crap with you.
Well, I'm even questioning: do I get a desk for the office, or do I just get like?
These are all great questions.
So, but anyways, how are you doing, man?
Very similar to you. Summer is an interesting time for parish life, as you know. Lots of, again, lots of new tasks being slowly added to my plate. We have our
Mm-hmm.
Virtus audit coming up. We had our procession on Sunday, which was interesting. Um,
Where did y'all process from?
from St. John's down Main Street, down Front Street to St. Michael's. So it was about a mile. Um,
Yeah, that's enough.
so it from the perspective of most of the parishioners, it was great. From everyone who was running it, we had like 8 meetings for this stupid thing, and none like the biggest issue I had was I was in charge of the order of the procession, like where everyone was gonna go, and the like at each one of these meetings, they asked me a dozen times, "What's the order of the procession?" I gave them the order. Everyone, crossbearer, candles, color core bells, incense, monstrance. And they said, "Yep, that sounds right." And then the day of, Father David is who wasn't at any of the meetings was like, "Hey, I'm at the back of the procession. Like, why would you be at the back with Jesus?"
What?
And I don't know if this is a Father Dave thing because he did this last
This is.
year at the
I remember this.
at the Holy Thursday mass. He was at the back. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. People, even if that is here's the issue I have with it. Even if that is proper or at least like it is okay to have Jesus at the back of the procession, I don't think you should do that. Jesus should be at the front. We follow him. But even if that is the case, no one knows that. So all the parishioners were just standing around like, what's happening? So we had like half the altar servers in the color core at the front, half of them at the back because they got split funny. It was a whole mess as far as I was concerned. There was a lot of
Did
mess.
you ask Father David?
I didn't have a chance to. He skedaddled. Like I asked him as he was processing with the monstrance. I was like, "What's going on?" He's like, "I'm supposed to be at the back." Okay, I don't have enough time to argue this with you because, and I said, everyone expects you to be at the front. If you're gonna be at the back, we'll make it work. Just then I had like Mike and I had radios. Mike was at the very front, so I was able to like communicate with him, and we made it work. But it was from a high up perspective, it was a mess. Everyone seemed to really enjoy it overall. We had a couple. We probably had a little over 100 people there. Would be my guess. Um, but yeah, I have words for the after action report. Uh, meeting, which will be in about a month. But otherwise, we're just trying to get through June. We got some stuff planned for the summer as far as some pilgrimages. Going to a Mud Hens game in the fall for the altar servers is kind of like a thank you treat for them. So just kind of getting all that stuff planned. But personal level, couple new things which I'll talk about during the going deeper. But been in the gym pretty regularly. I'm up to 167 pounds. Like I've maintained that for 2 weeks. I don't count it unless I like maintained the weight, and I've been consistently like about 167 for the past 2 weeks. So I'm 13 pounds away from my next goal, and then I'll kind of reevaluate from there. But it's been good. All right, now that we've rambled for 10 minutes about our catch up.
I have it. I have it. This comes from the ceremonial of bishops. The procession is formed in this order. First, the crossbearer, accompanied by acolytes carrying candlesticks with lighted candles. Next, the clergy, deacons of the Mass, canons and presbyters wearing copes, concelebrants, visiting bishops wearing copes. The minister carrying the bishop's pastoral staff, 2 censer bearers carrying censers with burning incense. The bishop carrying the Blessed Sacrament, and a little behind him, the deacons assisting him.
Yep. We use the Knights of Columbus have a very similar procession book.
I'm looking at the Knights of Columbus book.
We changed it slightly as far, just to accommodate for the fact that we don't have like visiting clergy, so we just put altar servers in there. But like,
I would just print this out and
we did.
What did he say?
Well, he wasn't at those meetings. Father Mike was. That was the other thing that was weird. Father Mike was in charge of like this committee, which again, it shouldn't have been a committee. It should have just been the clergy, me and Sharon, and then we distribute the information to the people that need to be there. But regardless, Father Mike was running the committee. Father David wasn't at these meetings, but he wanted to have like the key role of carrying the monstrance. Don't know why.
Interesting. They do say those who have recently received First Communion right after the crossbearer and candle bearers.
Yeah, like that. We read that too. We wanted to do something like that, but it was this is the first time we've had a procession in many years, so we wanted to simplify it. Like, all right, people who are in charge, kind of at the front. Like we have all the people who are directly involved. The monstrance. I was going to be right behind the monstrance, kind of like again. Mike and I have the radio so we can control pacing, and then everyone behind us, like you would expect. But again, I'm gonna have the after action report in a month. Yeah, I have a meeting with Father David about my job. I'm asking him to have this meeting because I need basically that clear understanding of what is my role and what is the role of other people who work at the parish, because there's some not conflicting, but like it's not clear what is my responsibility and what is other people's responsibility, because people are getting information from other staff members when it should be coming from me, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And because of this lack of communication, like internal communication, it's creating difficulty for me to do my job effectively, because people are looking to the wrong people for information, and it's making my job and the secretary's job a lot harder. So just kind of clearing that up, and the other thing is I want, Father David he's been slowly adding more things to my plate, which is good. I want him to add more and not just like, I need you to do this and then check on me 30 times. Like, hey, Andrew, I need you to do this. And then just know that it's being taken care of. Because that's what's been happening. Every time he gives me something to do, it gets done. But it's still a lot of checking in. I'm like, I did it.
It's done.
Yeah. Like you at some point you got to trust that, like, you either trust me or you don't, kind of deal. And a lot of it he does trust me on, but again, the analysis paralysis is and that's the killer in most parishes, overthinking the things.
Well, and it's just, you don't know what kind of situations he's had in previous parishes with situations, or even in the current parish where people just were not doing the things that they were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and I also think he just doesn't understand what I can do. He thinks that I'm doing things. He thinks that, like, he doesn't understand how effective technology is these days. Like, he wanted me to go through this list of 600 people and, like, clean out the names for our Virtus list. It took me an hour to do. He thought it was going to take me a week. Stuff like that. Like Father David, I can do a lot more than you think in this time frame.
You probably need to be working out, right? like the difference between special projects, right, that you're working on, right? So for example, during the summer is when I get a lot of special projects done,
Hmm.
right? Right now, I'm working on fall Ignite retreat for new students, working on planning like mission training camp, stuff like that, right? Okay. When I don't have special projects going on, what should I be doing?
Exactly, and that's really the
What's my day-to-day things,
yeah.
right? And I
And I
think
don't think I don't. That's the thing. I don't really have a lot of that. I have a few things here and there that's like
well, and
daily
that's something
projects, and I need that.
maybe you should build out with him is like, hey, like I start to think about day-to-day tasks here, and here's some things I want to do. Does this fall within my purview, right?
Yeah,
Like daily, I want to be like maybe it's like creating content for the parish, right? Doing short videos, or um, I want to be setting up meetings with parishioners and meeting one-on-one with parishioners,
yeah,
right? And maybe it's not spiritual direction per se, but it's like mission training.
yeah,
I want to be running like maybe it's like I want to be running 2 Bible studies a week, and so part of my day-to-day task needs to be planning and prepping for those Bible studies. What is it that when you envision this job, tasks, things you want to do, right, as a part of your job, and I know your job's getting ready to change potentially to communications coordinator,
something like that.
right? So then within that vein, it's like, all right, as communications coordinator, one of the things I want to do as a means of establishing regular communication is like I want to have like Father David, I want to film like 2 fireside chats with you a week.
Yeah, it is stuff like that. What really, because realistically, what he sees me as right now is, and again, not to spend their entire podcast on my job, but he sees me very much as like the sharpest blunt instrument he has. It's all special projects for me. He's like, hey, I need you to do this, and usually it either goes one of two ways. It either goes, I need you to do this. I don't care how you get this done. Just I need this done. Or it's I'm going to micromanage every part of your. I need this done, and I want you to do this exactly the way that I want you to do this. So it's kind of like that, kind of back and forth. But it's all special projects. I don't have a lot of, at least
Well,
in the summer, I don't have a lot of routine stuff to do. During the school year, I have a lot more routine stuff to do because it's OCIA. I'm working with the
yeah,
school, stuff like that.
and that's part of the summer with being in parish ministry is like, all right, what are the projects I need to do to be ready for the fall? So is
Exactly.
during the summer time when I'm recording stuff for OCIA, is during the summer when I'm like writing new curriculum for OCIA. Right when I was a parish youth minister during the summer, that's when I did all of my retreat prep because I didn't have students. That's when I wrote Bible studies. That's when I wrote all the youth nights, stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, I look at it from this perspective. The first half of the summer, from like May until June, right? 4th of July is like a great time to like, okay, really like I've got 2 months, month and a half, right? The first half of the summer, it's like, all right, I'm evaluating what happened to this year, right? Spending some prayerful time evaluating things. I'm kind of wrapping up things from this year, um, and I'm starting to put things onto a calendar for next year of things I want to do. Maybe it's like, oh, I want to do like a mini Polish like celebration because we have a lot of Poles in our parish, right? So maybe it's on St. John Paul II's feast day. Like we're gonna do pierogies and kielbasa, right, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? Okay, and so I start to plan for those things, and then July, okay, I need to begin executing.
Yeah. And part of the other part is this summer, we're starting a sort of a youth ministry program. We're still very much in the planning stages of it.
Y'all are competing with Rebuilt Monroe.
No, Rebuild Monroe is much like this podcast. Rebuild My Church is getting rebranded. But I'll go into that more once we have some more details figured out. But we have
Once we talk to a certain fellow named Joe.
yes. But yeah, there's a young couple in Monroe that wants to kind of take over that. So in a part-time role, she wants to be kind of like running a new youth program, based off of Rebuild My Church, but it'll be church sponsored because Joe just can't do it anymore. It's too much. He has too much on his plate with other things, which we'll talk about in the future, hopefully. But yeah, speaking of things being rebranded. So tell us
Hmm.
why the podcast is ending, Josh.
Why are we rebranding? Well, the podcast is not ending. This is a rebrand, hence the name of the episode. What if we rebrand the podcast? Um, I mean, this has been something I've been racking my brain around since we had a conversation with your brother and your wife at the MSU Michigan game.
At the Bacon's house, shout out Brittany
Yeah, at the Bacon's house. Shout out Brittany Bacon. Um,
and Cole.
Cool.
But yeah, I think just to before we preface anything else, we've been going at this for about a year now. July 12th, 2024 was the first released episode.
Yes. And we've
And
been talking about it for longer than that. I mean,
yeah, we've been talking about this doing this for over a year before that.
yeah. But the long and short of it was, we were like, oh, we really like this idea of like, what if we went and did stuff and like recorded it and stuff like that. And in premise, that sounds like a great idea for like a fun TV show or like episodic YouTube channel
Yeah,
where it's like we're going and doing stuff as two young adult Catholics trying to experience the world and find deeper, more meaningful realities about it. Doesn't it doesn't quite make sense for a podcast. It doesn't lean into that audio meat.
yeah, because part of what we realized is a good podcast. You know, we had a couple episodes like this is gonna be really good for the people watching on YouTube. And sorry, audio listeners, that's not that shouldn't be the goal.
The norm.
Yeah, like again, looking to podcasts that we both enjoy, like the Unsubscribed podcast. Great to watch. Seeing the guys is great, but I can get just as much out of it just listening versus watching.
Yeah, they're so funny. Or like Matt Frad or Theology of the Body Institute, like for some of my favorite Catholic YouTubers.
Mm-hmm. Even Patrick Nevy and
yeah,
and his podcast, like they just did a rebrand because the original premise no longer fit what they were doing.
Well, yes and no. They did a rebrand because they were like, this idea of the podcast being called The Crunch. It's been so they did a rebrand after 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, nobody knows the inside joke, right? The inside joke being that when they first started the podcast, Ethan, Patrick's co-host, was getting a bowl of cereal. And his dad goes, why don't you just call it The Crunch since you like Crafton Crunch so much? And that's literally like,
yeah, like like that idea is no longer like it's not relevant anymore.
Right. And they're like, oh, we're gonna call Bro Apostles because that was Ethan's original name on Twitter.
There you go.
Which is like that's a great name.
That's a solid name. I kind of wish we could steal that. But yeah, so the idea that of us doing this podcast, of going out and having all these adventures, or even doing things at our house, and like when we first started talking about this, I had this like I had this Good Mythical Morning idea almost, like the way that we could do stuff at the house.
And
but even then,
I like that stuff.
They're great things. That's not one, not a podcast, and two, both of those things require us to have money and be able to do things that are interesting for people, like successful podcasts and YouTube channels and stuff like that. They have some capital initially to do this. We both work for a parish. My wife is a theology teacher. We're not rolling in dough. It's an involuntary vow of poverty, really.
Right. Well, and then just tack on to like, we live 2 hours away from each other.
Yeah. Like when we first started this, you were living in my guest room.
No, we didn't start the podcast then. We started the podcast a year after I had moved to Michigan.
Maybe.
Because it was after I left Lumen Christi.
Oh, yeah, you're right, it was. Anyway.
I was then only living an hour away.
Yeah, you're only living an hour away. We saw each other very regularly. It was much easier.
And at that time, I wasn't dating somebody where I was like, I want to spend my free time with them, right?
And, yeah, I know, I got replaced.
You replaced me with Peyton, first off.
First off, you replaced me with Megan first.
No, I was replaced by Peyton long ago.
Anyway, but yeah, and you have a job that you also have a job that requires more of your time. It like you have a more consistent schedule, and like just logistically it wasn't working the way that we wanted to. Which is why for the past like 4 or 5 episodes, our stuff has been through Discord.
Which is very limiting.
It's limiting in a lot, like it's freeing in the fact that we've been able to put up, like, you know, when we had our what if we ran it back episode was great because we could do that in person, but we talked about how, yeah, we want to be able to, we're more concerned about putting out consistent content. I mean, that was the big issue with before. We were trying to do one episode a week. We were trying to do it all in person, and it just logistically it wasn't working. The content was suffering. Our wallets were suffering, and I think that we kind of came to this conclusion that one, our original premise, well, not bad in and of itself. It's not a total premise for a podcast. Two, logistically, we can't make it happen, and financially. And three, people have kind of noticed over the course of the past 10 episodes, really, there's been a shift in what we've been talking about and how we've been doing things anyways, which kind of prompted us to have this conversation of what if we changed the premise of the podcast, what we rebranded to more fully encapsulate what it is that we want.
Yeah, and it's this idea of like, we want to just live, and I talked about this in my opening argument, in my opening statements, Your Honor. We want to live deep, meaningful lives in the ordinary, to be reflective, to be contemplative about our lives, to have good conversations with one another. Right? I'm always drawn back to that conversation we were having, and I want to figure out how to capture that magic moment of that conversation in the cigar lounge in Detroit. Right, where like somebody literally is like, hey, I love the conversation you guys are having. How can we capture that?
Yeah. And just to kind of, the reason I'm whited out here is I just want to kind of read what our original statement was for the what if we. So all great stories inevitably start with a single question. What if we? What if I went to college? What if we went on a road trip? What if we did something different today? It is in this question we have decided to view the world and frame our discussions. It's so broad to keep the doors wide open for us to expand our horizons, learn new skills, and above all, experience the fullness of life. And I think what's been missing for us is that last part. Experiencing the fullness of life, but in the ordinary.
Yeah, but I also think like we're not going out on adventures.
Exactly. We're not experiencing the fullness of life in a way that the podcast originally lended itself to. Because again, the way that we framed it.
Or what we wanted to be the podcast. Or, going back to like, I mean, your wife and your brother both were like, you call it the What If We podcast, but like you guys don't do anything. You sit in front of a garage.
Yeah. And fair. Some of like the first couple things we did talk about things that we did, but again, we were just talking about it. We didn't have any no B-roll, and there's nothing like most of the time you never got to experience what we were doing. And again, very quickly we ran out of things. Like the UFL game was interesting. We went and did it. We were teachers.
Right.
That's about it.
And some of that is just like, okay, like how can we get more B-roll, right? And things like that. And how can we be committed to content creation? And is that something we want to be committed to? Or are we just doing this for fun, right? Because for me, like as much as I would enjoy like being a full-time content creator, that's a lot of work for very little security at this point in time. And so, right, the content that we're creating, right, I want it to be intentional, but I don't want it to be overwhelming. I want it to be something that's like.
I don't even want it to be like a side hustle. I want it to just be like, I genuinely enjoy the content that we have made so far, and making it has been a great joy for me. Whether it's the blog post, the quickfire catechesis, the podcast, especially though, I enjoy doing this not because I'm like, oh, I'm chasing the paycheck, because we don't make any money off this yet. But I
don't want it to feel like a burden.
Exactly. I don't want to lose the magic.
And sometimes I have felt that. And it's like, why do I feel this?
Mm-hmm. And I felt that too.
And I don't know if it's because it's felt forced or it's felt unnatural or just like, this is too much for what else I have going on in life.
Yeah, there are definitely months where we're like, you and I are both like, we can't do this right now.
Well, there's that, but also it's just like, I don't find it to be recharging the way we've been doing it.
Yeah. I would say the first like 7 episodes, while it was very rushed as far as like, we did a lot in a short amount of time, I felt invigorated to do it. Like I felt like
Yeah.
the energy was there for me to like, even though I was tired, I was like, hey, it wasn't we have to do an episode. It's like, hey, we had the opportunity to do an episode today. Let's do it.
Right. But also just like, mm, I felt like in some ways, and maybe this is not true, it put a strain on our friendship.
In some ways.
Right. Where and I was just like, I wanted the podcast to just feel like I was hanging out and having a conversation with my best friend.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like that the last few months.
Yeah. And I think it actually it brings me back to like the first recordings that we did when we were in my office and felt like
The
we're
lost
like
episode.
yeah, I mean, and they're not lost because we just re-recorded them like it wasn't anything new, but the energy wasn't the same. We were trying like those first episodes that we recorded, we were trying to have a podcast
Yeah, and I just
versus,
want to.
and I think we had that magic in that first. There was a little bit of magic in those first couple episodes where we really just like yeah, it was just a conversation about like one of my favorite episodes is the movie episode
Yes,
because it was just us talking about our favorite movies, which is
yes,
something we do.
and I feel like maybe this is just me. I love some of our friends. I love that they want us to succeed. And I love that they come to us with like, "Oh, you guys need to look at the camera more. You guys need to do this. You guys." I feel like at that point it became a production for me.
Yeah, and we're still not like that's one. I don't want it to ever just feel like a production because then it cheapens the friendship and the conversations that we have in my
Yeah,
mind at least.
I I don't want it to be a production until like
I want it to be professional in the sense of I want us to do this well, but not at the expense of the back and forth.
right, and it's like that's why like I mean, there's a couple cuts in this episode. I don't mind saying that because I just want to be real and authentic about it, right? There's things where I'm like, this needs to be cut out, right? Whether we're talking about people at work and using their names, or like we're talking about difficult family situations. It's like, hey, is this something we want in the public sphere? But I don't mind being real and honest just about like, yeah, life sucks, or
Yeah.
just like, oh, audio's cutting out, right? Like, especially if we're doing something like this, right?
Yeah. And I so
Because then it doesn't feel like I don't want to feel like something I'm not, and I'm not a content creator.
yeah. We're kind of we're entering that sphere and we're we're very much dipping our toes in the water with like the quickfire catechesis. The blog posts, I think the blog post actually has honestly been probably the most authentic recently.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you watched my most recent quick fire catechesis. I didn't quote the catechism. I didn't quote scripture.
Mhm.
I just talked about like if Jesus was God and he proved he was God by these miracles, why can't you believe that the piece of bread is actually him? And that's where I left it. I didn't get into like the here's the best arguments. I was just like,
Yeah, you did a much better job of being quick with the quickfire this time compared to your last one.
last time it was 7 minutes.
Yeah, we were shooting for 3 minutes and less. Um, that was the original premise, at least. But anyways, but like, and I explained this in my last blog post. Creating for the sake of creating is something that I think is lost just in general, but it's something that I had lost focus of for a very long time. Not just in regards to this, but just in general. Like
Yeah.
I used to paint, I used to write, I used to do all these fun things, and now I don't do that anymore. Until we started doing this, and I do this, for the love of the game. Like I just for the sake of doing it. Like I just enjoy doing
And
this.
and I don't want to lose the love.
Yeah,
Of
I don't want this to feel like a chore. The only like I want this to feel like a job once this become like if this became a job. That's the only
and
reason I would want this to
and
be.
even then I would say honestly I would want to find another income revenue stream that's connected to this, whether it's like going and professionally speaking and stuff like that, and keep the podcast something where
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like
hanging out with my bro.
the only time, like the only reason I would want this to feel like a job is if this was my job, and even then, I don't want to feel like a job.
No, and like
And I felt like this sometimes has felt like a chore for us. In the sense of, hey, we have to put out an
yeah,
episode today, or and like I'm definitely guilty of this. Like where I'll be like, hey, did you put the post up today? Like I feel like I'm nagging you. I'm not getting to be your friend. It's like I'm trying to manage my friend sometimes, and I
no,
don't want that to be the case.
and part of that, yeah, and part of that's just me like staying on top of things. But then it's just like, okay, right? when we originally talked about the premise of this podcast and talked about starting a podcast, when we joked about starting a podcast in college, it was always like me and you and maybe a couple of our other friends sitting on that porch.
And that's why we did it in the garage, like in front of the garage. Like we had like, it was just a couple of guys with the chairs talking it out. What's going on with our lives? What's on our minds?
Yeah, and like, you know, it's like another great show that I think is an example of like the kind of magic we want to capture. It's never probably going to be as big as something as the Unsubscribed podcast or the Matt Frad podcast or whatever. But I don't know if you ever listened to Catching Foxes.
Pretty much only when I'm with you in the car, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I've heard.
But there were two mid 30-year-old men just talking about their lives and like, hey, do you want to talk about the most recent Marvel movie? And they would just rant for an hour.
Yeah, and
They had
do
a
I want
decent
it to be
standard.
just that? No, but I think that's kind of
that's what I want the podcast to be.
yes, and I think
I want the
that's
podcast
what we.
to be just a microcosm of our conversations because I feel like our conversations have something to add to the world.
Yeah,
And so that's kind of the view of the podcast, right?
yeah, and
We
so
want
to
do something
let
every 2 weeks or so.
yeah, I think we should zoom out a little bit. You know, our company title is Duke and Alta Media Company. Duke and Alta is
LLC, yeah.
yeah, it's like, you know, it's about going out into the deep. How can we living life more fully? Our lives are very ordinary in a lot of ways, like you and I. And again, I'll talk about this more in my going deeper at the end, but that ordinary doesn't have to mean boring. And I think that our experience, while ordinary in a lot of ways, a lot of people relate to that or have the opportunity to relate to that in a way that we can reach them. Again, even if it's only like a handful of people, 20 people, whatever. I enjoy that. Like when, like, I'm gonna give a little shout out to my friend Todd. Todd, like when you know, I post in recommended media on our Discord all the time, like, hey, this is recommended media. Just basically, I've turned that into almost a self-promotion channel for us because no one else posts anything in there. But he said, man, this podcast sucks. By the way, what is the next episode? I ran out. But like hearing that was so made me feel, because outside of my mom and Brittany, no one has ever said like, hey, I really enjoy listening to your podcast. Usually it's my family giving me crap for having a podcast, or like they're just like they're making a joke of it in a lot of ways, which is fine. I don't care about, like, if you're gonna make a joke about something I care about, I don't really care about your opinion.
Your opinion, you can keep it. It's trash.
Yeah. Like, I'm not doing this. We're not doing this to be good at podcasts. We're doing this because we enjoy this. But like when Todd said, when's the next episode? I listened to all of them in a week. I was like, someone I know who, Todd and I've only known each other for a little bit, but someone I know, but I'm not, haven't been super close with until recently.
Found some value in the conversation.
Exactly. And he said, you know,
and he's probably not the only one. In fact, I know he's not the only one because of that conversation we had in the cigar lounge.
Yeah.
That, like, I can't remember his name.
Mario Kelly, I think.
Like, he thought our conversation was interesting enough that he gave us his business card and was like, look me up on, and like, I almost looked him up at trying to get a job after I lost my job with Lumen Christie.
Yeah. Like we have something to offer. So let's, how do we go about doing it? I think is what,
without it feeling forced, because to go back to this, we weren't trying to force a conversation at the cigar lounge.
We were just like talking about the state of the world.
That was just an ordinary conversation that we're having. And so, yeah.
So now we've kind of reframed what we want it to be. Let's talk about what kind of practicals and what our goals are with this. Because, you know, not to make this sound like a job, but we need to have some kind of parameters.
My goal is just to hang out with the homie and have good conversations.
Yeah. But like, how do we go about doing that? Well, for one thing, I think we should try to go back to in person as much as possible. Like, I would think,
agree with the long form podcast.
Yes.
So
that's one thing. Yeah. So like, we want to go back. Like, the podcast is here to stay.
Yeah. even if that's once a month we get together, we record 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 episodes over the course of a day, and that way we have content for a month or two.
Yeah. Because the worry that we had originally with doing batch recording was, okay, well, if something comes up, we want to be able to talk about that. But if we batch record, it's not going to come out for 2 or 3 months. First of all, watch it. I've been doing my research by watching Unsubscribe, but like they'll batch record, but they'll release the episodes. Like if something comes up more pressing, they'll release a different episode earlier. They don't necessarily release in order, so that's one thing we could do. But two,
Also, like,
we have
I don't feel like we can talk for an hour about the Israel-Iran conflict because I don't know enough. You don't know enough, other
yeah.
than the fact that we're both enlisting.
We just both have to be in the same unit.
Don't worry, buddy.
But like one thing I've talked about is we're keeping the long form. Let's do some more short form stuff that we can do on the fly, and that's where I think the Discord OBS recording stuff can come in, where we can do short form, whether it's reaction content. You've been talking about doing reaction content pretty much since this podcast started. We have yet to do any.
I think reaction content is just super great for getting short form content out there, and you're gonna catch flack from both sides, but that's where you just like, I don't know, don't read the comments. But like Reddit, I think interacting with Reddit stuff where it's like, hey, I found this funny thing on Reddit. Let me know what you think.
Yeah,
like, do you want to record a 10-minute video on it together?
Exactly. We can do short form things over Discord and stuff like that, where we can actually take the time to, like, if we want to do something that's more current and up to date, we can. But the long form stuff, we do it in batch, 2 or 3 episodes in a setting. And that way, some days when we see each other, it doesn't have to be about, podcasting. It can just be us hanging out and not having to worry about stuff because we already have the content ready. It's just us going back to being able to exist again.
Right. And if that's like we get together on one Monday a month and it's just like, hey, I'm coming over, like, let's hang out for 5-6 hours or longer.
Yep.
Let me crash on the couch.
Yeah, so one of those, because we see each other probably about twice a month in person. One of those could be like podcast stuff, but the other one we can actually just like, hey, do you want to go to the zoo? Do you want to go fishing? Like, just we can go back to being friends in that way. It's not just about the podcast. But so we'll still have 2 episodes a month of the long form, but we'll be adding in, like, on our YouTube channel and on our website, we'll be adding in the short form.
Our YouTube channel will be more of a YouTube channel, right? I want to get more of the quickfire catechesis out there, or just like, hey,
other stuff.
I want to talk about this thing that's on my mind, right?
Yeah, we can work. And what those what the other segments are gonna be called, if we're even gonna call them segments, yet to be determined. But we'll have more content for you guys to enjoy. We'll still have the podcast. It'll still be on Spotify. It'll still be our website's still going to host everything, and YouTube will be the host for the videos and stuff. But we're going to have YouTube content for people to watch that's outside of just us rambling for an hour and us having our conversations for an hour. There's more that we can bring to the table that's outside of this purview that we have.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know if we have anything else to say. I'm trying to think.
So, we'll keep you guys up to date as far as the changes that are coming with it, including the names and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, expect within 2 weeks, another episode to drop, probably not under the same name. We're not going to like go in and create a whole new podcast for people to have to find. We're going to keep the podcast, and I'm just going to change the name.
Yeah, so as far as logistics standpoint on that, we'll change the overall title. Like, what if we will change to a new title? But all, like, the 21 episodes of this stuff it'll be, what if episode 1? What if we da-da-da-da, like they have been? But the new one will be episode 22 or episode 1 of the new name.
I don't think we'll do episode names. I have a different thought for it, but we'll talk about it more.
Again, we'll probably release a short video talking about all this stuff once we have more figured out. But we wanted to kind of talk about why we're doing a rebrand, what the original vision was, what the new vision is, and how we're kind of going back to our original our OG vision.
Yeah, blog posts are still going to be coming out. You're going to have quickfire catechesis. Once we figure out how to do reaction content well, whether that's like we're going to do car reacts. I think that would be funny if both of us sitting in our car reacting to stuff.
Yes, but yeah, literally stuff like that. We just want to have, like,
there's a way to do that on FaceTime. where you can share a video on FaceTime, and all we'd have to do is figure out how to screen record.
Well, I can screen record just fine. There's literally a button for it.
Yeah, but
yeah, stuff like
anyway.
that. This has been a weird episode as far as we've talked about a lot and not a lot at the same time.
Spitballing. Yeah, we're just
but
spitballing.
This is our live kind of bringing you into the process of what's happening with Duke and Altum Media Company. Not just Duke and Altum Media, which apparently is on YouTube. There's another media channel on YouTube called Duke and Altum Media that's been around for less time than us, has more subscribers, and I'm very upset about that.
It's from India.
I know. They have 24 subscribers. We have like 18.
All right. This is why we just need to do more content.
Exactly. We gotta bump our name up in the algorithm.
Yeah.
And don't worry, we will still be doing the book club. The book club.
But I mean, I think that's part of like what we're doing with.
Yes. I just thought about that. Like our going into the deep and stuff like that. We will still have the book club. There will still be like the episode. At the very least, we will finish Dante's Divine Comedy. But I still envision that the book club as being part of our actual.
I imagine that being a part
podcast.
of just in general.
Stop saying the name.
I don't know what you're talking about. He's just gonna blur it out.
I'll bleep it. Don't worry. This is gonna be a lot more. This is gonna be the most edited podcast we've ever had to do.
So much.
Also, just in case you haven't. Well, no, we're switching to a Sunday schedule. We talked about this. Gives me an extra 2 days to edit.
Okay.
But also, yeah, fun fact. We'll probably have a post about this. We're switching to a Sunday release schedule, at least for the long form stuff, and the blog posts.
Another thing is like the what if we content is not going away in the sense of like, I've talked about this, you've talked about this. I want to do like, what if we go somewhere and we do like tiny mic interviews?
Mm-hmm. So much shorter videos, but they'll still be, 15, 20 minutes maybe, depending on what we're doing. But we're still going to go out and do things. Just not going to be an hour long. Because I don't know if some of you have caught on. We might have been stretching some of the last couple of topics.
Yeah, it's drafting a baseball team, for heaven.
Hey, 40 minutes of that hour-long episode, I think, was quality content. The 20 minutes of us discussing the merits of our team might have been stretching it a little.
But, like, I want to do, what if we went to the Ren Fair, tiny mic interviews?
Going fishing. Like, But
Andrew, we do tiny mic interviews with, like, the jailer.
Yep. just stuff like that. But yeah, so there'll be more. So to kind of sum up everything, podcast is not going away. We are rebranding. We'll come up with a name. And it'll be the style.
We have a name, but
it's going to be more like our very original concept before we even start recording. Us having conversations about things that are going on in our life, things that are important to us, what that looks like. Sometimes it'll be like specific topics, sometimes not.
Random shower thoughts we've had, and I'm like, hey, I want to talk about this.
Exactly. But it's going to be much more about us having conversations about our life, what's going on in our life, things we find interesting, whatever that looks like. We're still going to have the blog posts. We're still going to have quickfire catechesis, but we're adding more other things. What those will be, we'll have keep an eye on our Instagram and our Facebook for like more official updates. But there's going to be we're still going to do what if we. Gonna be more sporadic, but that'll be a separate. So like looking on our YouTube,
That's a separate project.
Yeah, look on our YouTube. There's gonna be playlists of things like, hey, this is the what if we videos. This is the Andrew's state of mind, stuff like that. Check the playlist, and will be released. So the big stuff will be releasing on Sundays, but check throughout the week. Randomly on Thursday, you might say, hey, there's a new short form video on YouTube, and there'll be much more regular announcements. So please follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all the things. Our website is going to be hosting a lot of things. So if you haven't, we don't have a way to subscribe to updates. I don't think. If there is, we'll figure it out.
I'm working on just getting a Substack put together and maybe switching everything over to Substack instead of Squarespace, because Squarespace costs money and Substack is free.
So yeah, we'll keep you up to date on website changes and stuff like that. But as a general rule, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. That's probably going to be our most regular announcements. on things, and as things happen, we'll let you know. But we really want you guys to be able to come with us on this journey. And again, talk about the ordinary in an extraordinary way.
Yeah. Sanctifying ordinary life. So, Andrew, one thing that we're keeping in the podcast. How are you going deeper?
I have something actually I'm very excited to talk about for this. Um, so I went to my spiritual director and we were having a regular conversation. But at the end of it, he said, anything else? I said, I hate ordinary time because I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Every other season, I understand the theme of Advent. I don't like Lent because it sucks as far as like it's literally intentional suffering, but I know I'm supposed to do. All these other seasons, I know I'm supposed to do, but especially the summer time of ordinary time, I never know what to do. So his suggestion to me was the ordinary time is about the extraordinary parts of the church in ordinary ways. So he said. So his suggestion was, he's like, go to mass more. Like, what does that look like for you? And actually, I'm gonna credit you with this, Josh, because seeing you and Megan praying night prayer. Our friends Pat and Alicia, they had this long running streak of praying a rosary together every day. I realized Miriam and I have tried several times to have a good prayer life together, and it's always felt incredibly awkward and forced. And forced in like one person will pray, have a bunch of intentions, and the next person's like, yeah, what they said, or like add one or two things. It felt like very one person was doing it or the other. It wasn't combined. So what Miriam and I have been doing is every day, either before or after dinner, we go through the daily readings. We talk about kind of like our thoughts of them, like what. Sometimes it's like especially with the Psalms, we're like, you know, yeah, God is great, or he's suffering a little right now. But sometimes they're very deep thoughts, sometimes they're not. Just kind of depends on the reading. But getting to hear each other's thoughts on the readings, and then once we finish with that, once we finish with that, we use the Hallow app. We listen to a reflection from Father Mike, Jeff Caven, Father President Dave Pavanka. Has some great stuff on the Holy Spirit, but we've been adding that to it, and then we both have a couple short intentions at the end, and we wrap it up with a prayer.
I love
But
that.
we've been doing it for over a week now. It's been really good.
And how long does that take y'all? Just curious.
Depending on, honestly, the longest part is the reflection from Hallow because they're between 3 minutes and 8 minutes. Just depends on the thing, but maybe 20
15, 20
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah, I would say 20 minutes on the high end.
And I mean, we could talk about this on. I think that would be a fun episode to talk about because we've talked about talking about our prayer lives, but just to be able to like give you a little bit more time in doing it and just talking about how that's, I don't know if changing is the right word, but like
Developing.
transforming your relationship with your spouse.
Yeah, and this has been good not just for me and Miriam's prayer life, but it's been good for my prayer life because, and I told Miriam this, and spoiler for that episode, my prayer life is garbage as far as like what most people are concerned. My prayer life is, I pray pretty regularly, but not in like I pray in the morning and the evening. Like it's just like I'll ramble like 15 minutes, like, "What's up, God?" Or like it's very short and sporadic. There's not a lot of depth to it. But now I'm starting to get more out of like I'm the fun slash annoying thing with ordinary time. Like we're going through Second Corinthians, we're going through the Sermon on the Mount, but it's just in little pieces. Like I could read through that myself, no problem. But there's a continuing story rather than just every Sunday at Mass jumps. Sometimes it's a continuing story, sometimes not. Here during the daily readings, there's a continuing message for like blocks of time. So that's been really beneficial for me. I've really enjoyed that. Deepening my own prayer life, but also finally having a prayer life with my wife. It's one of the things that they talk about in marriage prep all the time is you got to pray. Couples who pray together stay together, and we're like, we got this, we got this. She's a theology teacher.
Franciscan grads, yeah.
Franciscan grad, and literally the first 3 years of our marriage, we kept trying. We're like, we should pray together, and then it was the most awkward experience, and not awkward like, oh, well, there's teething. Like, it lasted a couple of days, and we would do it right before bed when we're both tired. We have different sleep. That's why I said dinner is a great time, especially during the summer. Even if I have gaming night, even if he's doing something, we can still do.
And I've noticed that I've tried to call you like right before, right after dinner, and you're always like, I'm busy.
Yeah. So it's just been it's a structured, but it's not like 5 o'clock every day. It's either before or after dinner, whatever makes sense time wise. But we have a time frame of when it's going to be, and her being home and me being home it's been very good for us.
Yeah, I haven't checked in with my parents, but they started doing that shortly after Christmas break with the Bible in a Year podcast, or not Bible in a Year, Rosary in a Year podcast.
Yeah, and it's stuff like that. And shout out to the Hallow app. Like
Yeah.
kept hearing about it. I was like, I don't know if this is really worth it. It seems kind of
For people who are just getting started with praying together,
there's
it's
a
great.
and I didn't realize
It's
there's so much stuff on there.
yeah. We use Hallow at the parish. We have a parish subscription,
Yep.
but yeah, no, it really is this whole thing of just like praying together is hard when you describe that first way you guys used to pray together, just like naming intentions. But like when it's like, all right, we're gonna be very structured about it, and almost in a way create a liturgy of prayer at home.
Yeah, because we
And
originally wanted to do stuff like, oh, we'll do like we could do like liturgy of the hours. We could do evening prayer, but at least for Miriam,
that's
that's not her vibe. I might get into it. I need to learn it a little bit better. But something we could do together. We both love scripture. We both like
mhm.
talking about scripture, and we both have different views on things. Like there, she's brought up things because she's a theology teacher. She understands the context of things better than I do. And sometimes I'll bring up stuff. She's like, I never thought about it that way. Just little things
Mhm.
that we're deepening our understanding of scripture, and we're deepening our understanding of each other and the way that we think. So
Yeah.
I know it's kind of a long how we're going deeper, but I'm really excited about
I
like
know.
this.
I
It's been
love
a
that.
while since I've had something like I love this. This is how I'm going deeper.
I can't wait to have that for a full episode. I think that's going to be a great episode.
Mhm. How about
So
you?
how am
How
I
how
going
have, how have you been going deeper?
been meal prepping? Uh, I brought 8 containers worth of food to work yesterday. That was one day's worth of food, and it was like 1,400 calories. 8 containers, Andrew. I didn't even eat through all of them. I am down 15 pounds since the start of June. Um, so yeah, if you want to watch a really good episode, a really good video, um, Mr. Beast just dropped a new video like
Oh yeah,
yesterday.
I heard about it. Like he's paying his friend like $250,000 to lose 100 pounds.
Dude, it oh, go watch the video. It's probably one of the saddest videos I've ever seen, but also one of the like
It,
most invigorating videos. So, but yeah, no, I've been meal prepping and trying to just like take better care of my diet, eat better foods. So,
yeah.
yeah,
I think it would be fun if like in the future if we did like a gym episode, just like comparing the way that we do things at the gym. I think that'd be kind
yeah,
of fun.
maybe we'll talk about it. But yeah, I guess that's all I've got for this week.
Yeah. So thank you all for coming with us on this leg of the journey for the What If We podcast. It's been like
Uh,
again, realistically, overall, I think it's been a fun journey. But this like I think this leg
we're
is where
excited. Yeah.
we kind of we're getting off and we're starting on a new trail. So catch us
Yeah.
next time.
Catch us in 2 weeks as we go into the deep. The
Dun
same
dun
ending.
dun. Thank you
Join
all
us
so
next
much
time,
for
2 weeks, for the Into the Deep podcast, where we try to live extraordinary in the ordinary. Peace.
peace, love, and tranquility.